Hi everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to look at the Tomb Kings, a multiplayer beginning build for the Tomb Kings. Tomb Kings is a really cool faction. They have a lot of really interesting mechanics and really cool aesthetic, in my opinion. Um, and yeah, so this is the build as always, and let's talk about it. So first of all, this build, one thing that Tomb Kings do very well is chaff infantry. Everything obviously doesn't route; it just crumbles away. That gives your infantry they're very sticky. So even when they're dying, even like long after the fight, they just slowly crumble away, which can be really helpful if you have like other forms of damage coming through, so you can respond to things relatively quickly because they don't need immediate assistance. They can fend for themselves. Now, um, the best parts of the Tomb King roster right now are definitely the big monsters. The War Sphinx is one of the notable ones, and the other really good one is the Arwar Necro Sphinx. Even the regular Necro Sphinx is very strong. Um, but their constructs in general are what make this faction strong, and everything else is kind of built around the damage dealers being the constructs. So this build that I'm gonna recommend, two skeleton horse archers, just to capture the point, some vanguard deployment. Uh, Katep, Katep with the spell spamming thing, where you do these cheap spells. You can consider just bringing, like, you could consider just doing this kit instead. Uh, Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance is very like cost-effective damage spell, so it's very good for expensive things, especially Cav. But in this army, I'm going to recommend that you bring the Incantation of Protection, and because you have this Restless Dead, which heals all of your infantry by a little over 1%, 1.2%, every time you cast a spell. But then also, Katep has this ability for increasing cooldown. So every time that you cast a spell, your opponent won't be able to cast a spell for 15 seconds, which is really nice. Um, Katep himself is pretty weak. You got to be really careful with him on his horse. I thought about putting him on the chariot, but I'm favoring going wider with the infantry. I'll talk about that in a second. Restless Dead, and then the Sandstorm is just it's a decent vortex. It's not amazing. It's not terrible. It's a little bit low AP damage, but if you cast this on an archer, you get lucky with the direction. It's pretty strong for clearing out some chaff. Now, the big one that we want to talk about. Okay, so the warriors, they, again, they're extra chaff in some degrees. Like they trade melee stats for the crumbling feature and just HP, so they don't do that much damage. They're just there to take up space. They also have expendable, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't say it here actually, but I'm pretty sure these have two capture weight. So they're not very good at capturing points. Now, yeah, I guess it's a hidden trait then. Similarly with the spearmen, the same deal. They have a little bit better melee defense. They have bonus versus large, so they're okay at fighting large things. But again, all five of these are just here for, um, they're just there to hold while your damage dealers over here do the damage. Now, the Nehikaran warriors are similar in concept, except they do a little bit more damage, so they're not completely useless. We also get this Realm of Souls passive, so that heals up our whole army for a while as well. But the Nehikaran warriors, not much better, to be honest, but they do have full capture weight. So they do a little bit more damage, and they have 5 capture weight. So the extra capture weight is sort of why I'm bringing a couple of them. Now, the big one of note here is the War Sphinx. I kind of mentioned that already, but it has really high charge bonus. and decent bonus versus infantry. So, and then the biggest thing is this unit has really good animation, so really good collision damage on the charge. So wherever possible, you want this thing just hitting infantry, going out, hitting infantry again, the whole game. That's all you need to do. Just keep moving this thing around in and out of infantry, and then it'll do so much damage. It also can attack large targets too because of the really high charge bonus. So some players like Outer Region have been doing that a lot, where they'll just bring two War Sphinx, or Cetra on a War Sphinx and a regular War Sphinx, and they'll charge it into everything because it has such high charge bonus. Um, in this case, let's say that it's an infantry clearer because it takes a little while to develop that other style. But it has good AP damage, so even if it's armored things, you can do that. Now, if your opponent's like, I'm playing the Tomb Kings, I know how to beat the Tomb Kings. They're going to bring big monsters, and I just kill them with my big monsters. Well, that approach would be wrong because we have the Chosen of the Gods. Chosen of the Gods has very similar to the Angels of Decay, where it spreads out as it like explodes right before it hits the target and spreads out. But it does a lot of damage, and it's really good at killing almost everything. So it's not the only thing that it's not particularly good at killing is like cheap infantry. But expensive cavalry, single entities, monstrous infantry, this thing does so much damage against all of those targets that it's, in my opinion, almost an auto take on the Tomb Kings roster. Yeah, really strong unit. Get all of its ammo out. You can easily win games. The last thing I'm recommending is one Ushapti. You could maybe even bring two. But this one, they recently got buffed, so it got a little bit more bonus versus infantry, and it's high armor. So this thing will clear out armored infantry. So if you're against like the dwarves, for example, Ushapti, or like one of your best friends, for killing all the armored infantry. Nice to have just one to support your cheap front line. Now, I mentioned the horse archers already, so again, talking about large things, I'm recommending that you bring two sepulchral stalkers. You can get away with just bringing one of these, but I would recommend at least bringing one. The sepulchral stalkers have, their laser beam eyes that do a lot of AP missile damage, and they have anti-large and charge defense and charge reflection in melee. So primarily these are not melee fighters. Don't use them as primarily melee fighters. You want to be using their short range gun, laser beam eyes, wherever possible. But they're very good at killing large things because either you're shooting at them with your laser beams or you're getting anti-large armor piercing damage into your opponent. So good multi-purpose unit, and then you can also shoot armored infantry, and they do very well at that too. Now, I recommended that you bring a lot of constructs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's usually nice to have a necrotect to heal as well. The heal is not insane. There's only two goes of it, and it does maybe 17-18% health. But it's nice to have this unit because it also has this Vambraces of the Sun that's constantly applying the blinded debuff. And the blinded debuff is really strong. This negative 24 defense and melee attack and accuracy. As you're attacking, boom, boom, boom. Basically, it will always be debuffing your opponent. So you just throw this thing on like an expensive infantry, and that expensive infantry is basically becomes chaff. So really nice to have one because you can use the restore ability and the Vambraces. So you'll probably want to be using it on your Kemrian War Sphinx, but maybe your Chosen of the Gods took damage too, and you need a little bit of extra healing on that, for example. Or your Sepulchral Stalkers are another great target. Now, the last thing, in terms of infantry killing, we have a lot of infantry killing between Upshapti, Kemrian War Sphinx, but the Screaming Skull Catapults, with its AP Discourage, is so good at killing infantry. It might take a little while, but even when it's not killing infantry, not only does it apply, oh yeah, so it's not discourage, it's take cover. It also applies the taking fire from artillery debuff, so it's like a -16 leadership debuff every time it shoots. Really good at clearing infantry, especially low leadership infantry. So it's nice to have one. Just put it in the backfield. Now, in terms of the mobility, I've gone a little lighter in the mobility, in the assumption that you'll be attacking most of the time, and you don't really need to defend as much. You know, you don't really have things. So some to like have an attack on your opponent if you need it, but mostly, basically the biggest strength of the Tomb King's cavalry is that they have the crumbling. They have this crumbling debuff, so or they're crumbling instead of routing, so they're very sticky. Again, you can just throw them towards your opponent's artillery, and even if your opponent does a relatively good job of protecting their artillery, um, because these will just continue fighting for a long time, there's a good chance that you'll be able to kill that because it'll just stick around. And this one is better than this one, but sometimes it's nice having the two. This is actually a reasonably good light cavalry unit, but it's again a light cav unit. It doesn't do everything. Carrion are the last bit of mobility that I talk about actually tend to be pretty bad. So why am I recommending them? Is sometimes you just need a flying unit. They don't have much of a charge bonus and melee attack, so basically they'll just like sit on something for a while until they crumble away, which is situationally useful. Sometimes you need to have just like a carrion stopping like reinforcements from coming in, or sometimes you need to dive the center of a tight formation, and it's nice to have carrion to disrupt. So yeah, just useful, but not a very good unit, so I'm only going to recommend one. Lastly, the infantry that we're talking about here is Nehikaran warriors with their weapon strength, their bonus versus infantry. Again, we talked about them above. Not amazing, not terrible, mostly there for capture weight. This unit, similarly, there for capture weight, but it is now a little bit more armored, but significantly better stats. So you can see as extra 20 melee defense and 9 weapon strength, and a silver shield. So it's, again, okay. It's not amazing. None of the Tomb King infantry is particularly strong, except for this unit, which we'll get to in a second, but just there for full capture weight and reasonably good stats. And then lastly, the Kepler Guard, which is a very, very strong unit. So good armor, high leadership, regeneration, bonus versus infantry, strong melee stats. This thing is like the one infantry on this roster that will reliably trade up into most other infantry. So I'm going to recommend that you bring it just so that you have a little bit more durability in the secondary part of your army, so you don't have to rely so much on just the constructs. You also have some options in your secondary to bring in some more reliable infantry. So that was a lot of things, but Tomb Kings, what they really are excelling at, I don't know, just to do a refresher, they excel at being sticky. They excel at strong constructs. They right now are pretty good at killing infantry, reasonably good at killing armored things, and yeah, a lot of fun. Give them a try. I would say this is a more reliable. I mean, it's not the easiest faction to learn, but it is easier than a lot of the other factions. So great place to start if you're a beginner looking to try something new. Thank you for listening. Let me know how it goes, and I will see you in the next video.